looking up what is reality deconstruction is. Deconstruction is the approach to understanding the relationship between text and meaning. Deconstruction perceives that language, especially ideal concepts such as truth and justice, is irreducibly complex, unstable, or impossible to determine. Deconstruction from a philosophical and literary analysis derived mainly from meanings are only arbitrarily related to reality in the sense that the ways in ... Alright, welcome back everyone. Few test trials of the camera and the mic. I wanted to make sure everything is in frame. I've been doing this and I've been out of frame, so I wanted to make sure I got it this time. So, since In Menham is possibly not going to be making content anymore, I wanted to give some arguments, some like sort of closing arguments, I suppose, until more come further, because I would like to pursue this a little bit more. And so I've come up with 4 positions that I'm going to play for you right now. So I've got this wonderful title. Here we go. The title is A Neutral Natalist Argument to an a neutral nihilist's argument to a antinatalist nihilist argument or position. So let's go ahead with position 1.
Position 1. I will cause a lot of pain to end the world of pain. The hypocrisy position.
So, if one way to rid of the situation that life is pain, ergo life must end, is to destroy life itself. If part of the argument is that people cause pain unto others, how is the solution to cause pain to others? This does nothing but perpetuate the problem. If mass genocide is one of the reasonings behind the conclusion that antinatalism is a sound argument, it would seem antithetical to proclaim mass genocide to be any kind of solution, as it would fall into the category of the reasons why it is a sound argument. It would seem hypocritical to say mass genocide and murder exist. This supports my claim that life has more pain than pleasure, and therefore life must cease to exist. Ergo, we must commit mass murder and genocide. Alright, so basically, this position is circular reasoning, or begging the question, because the premise and conclusion are contradicting each other. It's like mass genocide, murder, pain, problems, therefore no life. Well, how do we remedy that? One suggestion. Now, this is I don't know that this is necessarily in Menham's position, but it is a position I've heard from antinatalists, is by completely obliterating the planet, just wiping it all out, tons and tons of nuclear explosions. Okay, so that is like mass genocide, murder, pain, turmoil, whatever. So it's like, to get rid of it, you have to do it. This is like a double negative. It doesn't make any sense. I suppose in a way, you could argue that just this one particular action will take care of it, but you don't know that for a fact. There could be survivors. You don't know. I find this to be a very poor position, personally. Maybe somebody out there could make a stronger position for it, but I don't see it. Now, let's move on to position number 2.
Position 2. The blind position. The things we take for granted.
There is much more to life than pleasure and pain that make life, although futile in its entirety, worth having. One example of this is awareness itself, as achieving awareness is like winning the lottery of life. It stands to reason that there is far less life that ends up living than life that ends up living at all. So, to be alive and consciously or cognitively aware is a rarity all on its own. We are not burdened by life so much as we are privileged in the sense that we get to experience its existence at all. We get to see the sunrise. We get to see the flowers bloom. And we are privileged to be able to take in all the information from our sensory organs to interpret the world around us. As Carl Sagan once said, we are a way for the cosmos to know itself. We are also able to be consciously aware at how the universe and nature works. Without awareness of any kind, there would be no observer at all to observe nuclear fission or fusion, nor how a bird adapted to fly at all. Okay, for position number 2, I wanted to tell like a personal story of mine, where I had taken a drug, and it's very similar in its chemical composition to that of the wolfsbane alkaloid, which is a way in tricking the brain out into thinking that you're going to die. But although I dosed up to, I think, 120 milligrams of this particular drug, and I thought I was going to die. Like I felt the muscles in my neck tightening. I could really feel my heart, like in everything that it was doing. It is slowed down, tensing up, and I had this instinct in the back of my mind to not fall asleep. And after doing some research on it, I come to find out that if I had dosed just 10 more milligrams of this stuff, basically what my body was fighting was going into a coma. And you know, from my perspective, through my way of looking, through my experience of it, I thought I was going to die. I literally thought I was going to die. And once it was over, I remember going outside and seeing the sunrise and thinking about just how much I took that, just something as simple as seeing the sun coming up on the horizon. Something that simple that happens day in, day out. It's just humdrum. That I take that for granted, or seeing the flowers bloom as the sun comes up, that I have the ability to be cognitively aware of my own existence and to be able to be alive to witness these events happening. And that had I not ever been alive, I would never have been able to witness such events. Events like bees flying around, like the flowers blooming, the way that they smell, the sun rising up. It's not about pleasure. It's not about pain either. It's about, I have the privilege of being able to be aware of the world around me, to be cognitively aware of my own existence. I have the privilege of awareness. I have the privilege of life to be able to observe all of this stuff. And this is something that I think is deeply taken for granted. We don't notice it because it's just, we see it every day, and we pay no mind to it. It's just part of the world, the universe, nature, whatever. And so it's no big deal. No big deal. But you don't stop to think about it. It took that sort of feeling of near-death experience to come out of it to say, like, I get to see it another day. I am privileged to be able to see it another day rather than never again or have ever. So life itself is an exceptional thing. Not the amount of people that get to exist is far less than the amount of people that will never, ever be able to exist. And that even extends into the animal kingdom. And this actually can be measured mathematically. I'm not so much of a math whiz to go over that kind of mathematical equation for you, but I know that some people have. Now let's move on to position number 3.
Position 3. Blaming the causation of random events on the universe for your pain. No one chooses to be born.
How everything we see around us has been caused by random events that eventually have led to life, planets, solar systems, and the rules and laws of nature, the universe, and what we call physics. There is no distinct plan for how everything works, and life is nothing more than a causation of random events that are held captive to the laws of nature. This being the reality, why would the assumption be made that humans are somehow not held to the law of chaotic causality, resulting in random consequences? Birth is only one such example of this, as well as predatory and prey positions found in nature. We are only alive because we say so, because we have this thing called awareness. This is not an intentional thing created by some divine or intelligent creator. Rather, it is the result of random circumstances that led to an inevitability of causality. If we make the assumption for just one moment that we are no less or no more aware than a planet or solar system, then we are merely biological muck that is still following the pattern of random circumstances that lead to a causality. We are compelled to have sex, to procreate, to consume resources, and expel waste. Both are means of energy and waste material of energy consumption. Ergo, life itself is not desired nor a non-desired outcome, but rather the cause of random circumstances seen and observed in nature. One could even conclude this about pain and pleasure. So, yes, if you read between the lines in this position, you will conclude that I am basically saying, like, I'm going beyond almost the nihilist perspective and really delving deep into it by saying it's not just nothing is everything and everything is nothing. I mean, literally, the only thing giving us some sense of importance is the fact that we are self-aware. Without that, we are just biological material running around. We are essentially the same sort of force and bullshit as planets and stuff colliding into each other. We have this brain, which is just basically a biological computer that is meant to interpret the world around us through our sensory organs. And that this whole concept of life, pain, and pleasure is nothing more than the result of living in a chaotic world that is ruled by causality and the consequences of causality. And I'm extending that into life itself and reproduction, as well as pleasure and pain. Again, if you have a good position as an antinatalist against this, then I'd love to hear it. But as far as what I'm telling you is that your position on pain is irrelevant, because we are nothing more than biological material that just so happens to be self-aware. That's it. All right, now moving on to position 4.
Position 4. Ignoring the means to fix what we can. If we can make the conscious decision to rid of life, there is no reason for social reform.
If the lack of social reform is part of the problem of life is pain, ergo, it should not exist, then this position negates the need for social reform to try and make life easier and better for future generations. Yes, the collapse of the human species is inevitable, but we cannot make a good assumption or approximation as to when this will be, due to the reality or fact that life itself is the causality of random events. Given our ability as humans to manipulate our environment and create civilization beyond any life form we have thus encountered, would it not be in our best interest to create an anti-Darwinian society to ease the suffering of future generations and make life less damaging for the individual, the species, and other species as well? Please refer back to position 3, that life is the causality of random events. Since we as humans are a product of nature and we cannot circumvent the laws of nature, we are essentially unable to stop the random occurrences known as life. Even if we do, then it's nothing more than a random event of nature with the causality of the end of life, or awareness as we know it. If some of the pain and suffering from the juxtaposition of the antinatalist nihilist is the causality of social issues, then it is counterproductive to make the antinatalist argument, as the laws of nature cannot be circumvented, nor is the cease of a procreation a solution to social problems we can actually fix, as they are man-made constructs. This may be arguable, and not products of nature itself. Example, morality, fairness, just or unjust. All right, so in this position, the thing that I would like to point out is that since life is nothing more than random circumstances or cause and effect relationship, causality leading to a random event or something of that nature, we are bound and held by nature. We can't circumvent it. Human beings are a part of this process. So we can't circumvent it, and we aren't the choosers of life. Life is just a circumstantial thing of random events happening. It's the causality of that. and so is our reproduction. We are held to the laws of nature, physics, and the universe. So, if some of the problems stem from social inadequacies, so even like Friedrich Nietzsche and myself am a social critic, one of the reasons we engage in social criticism, and even the antinatalist nihilist does this. I think many nihilists do. I think many anti-theists and atheists do, regardless of what little label you have. Many people are critics of society and social issues. The reason for this is that since we have no control of this, and yes, even though one day humanity will cease, who are we to be the arbitrators to say that, for one, they shouldn't be able, that future generations should not be able to engage in the ability to be aware of the universe around us? There are things that have not yet happened that, even though they could signify the end of humankind itself, it would be interesting to have an observer present to see them. For instance, the infamous galaxy rise that will happen eventually, the rise of the Andromeda galaxy as our Milky Way galaxy collides with it. This will be it could be a catastrophic event. They theorize possibly not, but still, to have an observer, human beings that are self-aware, to observe this event would be an interesting event to observe for those alive in the future to do it. So what we can do today is work on a better society so that people can live longer, healthier, more productive lives, and that they don't have to endure as much hardship and pain as the previous generations have had to do. If you are an antinatalist, you are negating this entire argument. And suppose you don't get what you wish, then I guess you've been arguing nothing. So, those are the 4 positions that I came up with. And I would love to hear your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. I will leave... Originally, when I printed these, it was full of errors, so I fixed the errors. And I will leave the edited version in the description below. Like, share, subscribe, and comment, or hit the bell button on any channel you're subscribed to. And as I said before, and I've said about in Mendham, is this concept of controlling production for any species is not supporting the ideal of choices. And what it is, it's supporting the idea of imposing one's will, not just on others as human beings, but other species as well, against their own will. And like I said, you can't circumvent nature. I think nature is the only dictator that exists that you can't do anything about. Well, with that, I'll leave you there, and I'm out.